If you're considering retiring to the Philippines and Cebu City is on your list, well, let's actually talk about Panglao and Bohol because I recently did a rating video on Cebu City and only scored a 20 out of 40, but Bohol, Panglao scores 30 out of 40, so it's a total different conversation today. So welcome back to Solo Life Abroad. I'm Ryan. I'm in BGC today in a condo, checking this place out. But I'm visiting 8 cities across the Philippines and I've got 8 criteria and I'm evaluating all of them by that same criteria so you can get my reasonably objective opinion about how they rate compared to one another, discovering whether or not I can live in these cities in the Philippines and sharing that information with you. Surprisingly, Panglao / Bohol and Alona Beach area rated really high on my list. I think more expats need to give it serious consideration because it's not on most people's list, but it's clocking in above its weight. And compared to Cebu City, which it's very close to, which is an advantage, I think it's worth considering. Now, most people know Panglao because of Alona Beach, and they consider it just a weekend destination. So you can take a ferry from Cebu City over to Tagbilaran, which is like the biggest port city, and then within a 20-minute trike ride, you're over at Alona Beach, which is a really beautiful beach. There's also several others that have long stretches of white sand, and that's what most people envision when they think of the Panglao area. But there's a lot more to the story than just that. So let's go through the criteria one by one. First is cost versus the lifestyle. And for Panglao and Bohol, I'm going to keep talking about those together as if they're one thing. But Panglao is a small island right off of Bohol, but you get to it via Tagbilaran, which is on Bohol, but then you cross a little bridge and you're on Panglao. So I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars for overall cost versus lifestyle, because the lifestyle is basically your beachy, islandy, rural, relaxed situation that I think most people are looking for. Now, costs can be high in tourist areas, that's true, but when I'm talking about costs, I'm generally looking at value overall for what you get for the rents. So rents are generally low. The offerings are mostly homes and apartments. There's not the high-rise condo culture that you get in Cebu City. So there's a lot of options, but they're more normal houses. They're more like what a native Filipino would be living in. And the quality runs the gamut from super affordable $100 a month up to much larger, fully furnished houses that can probably go for well over $1,000 a month. But there's a lot of options and variety. And of course, the further away you get from a really nice beach, the cheaper it gets. So I think most people can strike a good balance between those things, find the sweet spot, and rent's a pretty nice place. Now, with that, there's might be some extra costs that you may not have had with like a high-rise condo. And that's basically utility bills. So you're going to have utility bills, maybe water delivery service, internet. If you've got AC, of course, it might be harder to get a small home than a condo. So you might have a little bit higher utility costs. But overall, for the variety of options and the value you get, I think Panglao and Bohol in general, easily a 4 out of 5. So the next one on the list is healthcare access. And surprisingly, Panglao and Bohol in particular is getting 4 out of 5 stars, which is not quite as good as Cebu City. But there's some new hospitals and some specialty medical centers that have been built in the last couple years, and the government has actually put a lot of effort into improving medical care across all of Bohol and Panglao. And so in an emergency, like if you were to have a heart attack, getting to a nice high-end hospital is still going to take a little while. So that's my one caveat. It may not be great for like extreme critical care with a serious problem like a severe stroke or a heart attack, but for 95% of people's needs, wrecking your motorbike or getting an infection or stepping on a sea urchin or falling down some stairs, things like that, it's great. And there's some specialty medical centers that give top-notch care that weren't there just a few years ago. So it's rapidly improving. There's a variety of options. The doctors speak English and are often trained in the West. So basically really good healthcare. The only exception is if you had a very severe issue, like a major heart attack, and that facility on Panglao or Bohol couldn't handle it and needed to send you over to Cebu. But for your routine day-to-day healthcare needs that most expats are dealing with, you can take advantage of the facilities on Bohol and take the ferry across to a major medical center in Cebu if you need to do an annual physical or to go see a specialist that's not available on Bohol. That's definitely an option. So really, you're getting the best of both worlds. So that's why I'm giving Bohol 4 out of 5 stars. All right, let's talk about infrastructure. I'm going with 2 out of 5 stars, and that might be a little bit unfair because there are decent roads on Bohol and Panglao. It's relatively easy to get around, but the vast majority of transportation is by trike, which is not a problem. You just have to get used to a trike, and they can be a little cramped and a little bit uncomfortable. Yes, grab rides are certainly available, and the roads to get you around are perfectly adequate. But it is a rural area, so there's no real actual highway, no exits or overpasses or anything needed like that. It's just a small island, 2 small islands with roads accordingly to match. So I'm giving it only 2 stars, even though the infrastructure is adequate, primarily because of the brownout issue. There is a problem with brownouts on Panglao and Bohol. So for anyone who's going to consider retiring there, I would absolutely recommend getting a generator or renting a house that has a backup generator because you're going to need it. That's just reality there. Internet can also be a little iffy, although it has improved in recent years. There are major providers available, but depending on where you rent, you might only have one option. Starlink is an option, but that's fairly expensive. Because of the power fluctuation and marginal internet, I'm going with only 2 stars, but everything else is sufficient for the lifestyle. All right, the next category is proximity to beaches and nature, and 5 stars out of 5 stars. I mean, we're talking islands, 2 of them. Bohol's fairly large, Panglao's a little smaller, but no matter where you live, you're going to be within a couple of minutes of a beach, and there are lots of nature trails. Anyway, I digress. So there's going to be a beach nearby. There's going to be hiking trails. There's going to be recreation options. So 5 star out of 5 stars. And they're not crowded beaches either, unless you go to the heart of Alona Beach, which is super touristy, but there's no need to do that because there are other really nice beaches like Dumaluan Beach just down the road that is practically abandoned and really nice. So if you want nature, if you want a relaxed place that feels like you're in nature, that looks like you're in nature, that has trees and wildlife and waterfalls in places to just get lost in the jungle or in the forest, it has it. So that's why I'm giving it 5 out of 5 stars. All right, the next category is conveniences versus the traffic. Well, there's very little traffic for the most part, and I would say conveniences are also limited. So it balances out a little bit. There are some decent grocery stores right in Alona Beach. There's certainly several in Tagbilaran, which is like the major city that most people will use to go in and out by ferry to Bohol or Panglao. And most of what you need to buy is in Tagbilaran. There's motorcycle dealers and repair shops and the doctors and medical facilities, and almost anything you would want to buy you can get. There are going to be some exceptions to that. If you need some specialty item, yep, you may need to take a ferry over to Cebu City. Overall, I think conveniences are reasonable given the island lifestyle, and you're not making major trade-offs. It's not like it's wall-to-wall traffic that's terrible so that you're dealing with modern headaches but not getting the modern conveniences. It's a chill place with chill traffic by and large. And so I think that balances out. So that's why I'm giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Okay, the next category is the overall vibe of the place. And I'm going with 4 out of 5 stars because the vibe is awesome, as you can see from some of the B-roll I've included. At risk of being redundant, it's a chill place. It feels relaxed. It feels like a beach community. No one's really in a rush, except maybe a trike driver or a grab driver who's trying to make a buck. But it doesn't have the hustle and bustle. It's got the laid back, everyone's going to the beach type vibe. And many of the residents on the island actually support the tourism industry, and that's not very rushed. The people that work in the hotels or in the restaurants, they've got the routine down and they're not in a rush, and they often walk to work. So it's not a hustle bustle commuter drive your car culture. I think the vibe that most people, when they think of the Philippines in a relaxed retirement lifestyle, I think Panglao's vibe is exactly what they have in mind. So you can't go wrong in that regard. So at least 4 out of 5 stars. Now, let's talk about walkability and recreation. I'm going 4 out of 5 stars here too. To be fair, the walkability isn't wonderful. Now, on Alona Beach and in some of the tourist areas, yes, there's definitely sidewalks. Yes, you're going to have to go around some food carts and some trikes, and oftentimes trikes and taxis park sort of in the walking zone. But that's just the nature of the Philippines. But in the sense of you're just walking down the block to a shop, to a restaurant, to the beach, there the walking is adequate. Recreation is good, and by that I mean exercise recreation. There's no major public parks that I saw that have a big long walking area. There's no high school track to go around, but because of the beach and the long stretches of white sand, anybody who's a fitness enthusiast who likes walking will find a place to walk. And honestly, the people who like to jog or run, they do it on the road. They just find the best stretch of road that doesn't have crazy traffic. They often do it facing traffic because better the devil you know, and you can get out of the way of someone barreling towards you. And yes, there's going to be some noise and a little bit of exhaust, but the vehicles are few and far between enough in most parts of Panglao and Bohol that you're going to be able to walk down the side of the road. It's not dangerous. So infrastructure, as I said, is not quite what you might want, but that doesn't mean you're sacrificing recreation and exercise outdoors. Okay, the final category is the overall value, and I'm going with 4 out of 5 stars on this one for a grand total of 32 out of 40 stars. In my mind, it boils down to what do you get for your money? What kind of lifestyle does your dollar purchase for you? And I think Panglao actually, and this was a surprise to me, is actually far better than I was expecting. I thought it would be heavily touristy everywhere. I thought it would be super rural with no amenities, and it's not like that. It's got the right amount of amenities and services, the right amount of medical care, the right amount of businesses and restaurants, with enough to give you variety. So if you want an Indian restaurant one night and Mexican the next night, and then local Filipino food the next night, yep, no problem doing that. There's enough shopping and grocery stores, and the beach, again, is only a few minutes away, and the people are super friendly, and the costs are reasonable, and the healthcare access you need most of the time is going to be right there. So I really don't see any major downsides to Panglao or Bohol compared to Cebu City, which had some benefits, but also had a long list of downsides, in my opinion, including a trash, litter, sewage, and odor problem. There is some trash issues like everywhere in the Philippines, in Panglao and Bohol, but not to the degree in Cebu City. So I just wasn't seeing the downsides. I was seeing mostly upsides. And as soon as I got there, going from Tagbilaran to Alona Beach on a trike, I was looking around on the trike ride and I thought, wow, I like this place. I could definitely see myself living here long term. Now, I was only there for 3 days, in fairness, so I can't give a long-term assessment, but my gut check, my initial vibe is Panglao's actually pretty awesome. And if you've been hearing a lot about Cebu City, you might be in for a rude awakening. Make sure you go watch the last video where I bagged on Cebu a little bit, and I think gave fully justified reasons for it. But I think Panglao will be a pleasant surprise, and it's so close to Cebu, I think you can have the best of both worlds. The relaxed lifestyle, but the conveniences in the modern healthcare of Cebu, which you just schedule in advance and go across as necessary. And of course, Cebu functions as a transportation hub to fly anywhere else in the Philippines or anywhere else in Asia, for that matter, right? So overall, I was very impressed with Panglao and Bohol, and I definitely would like to spend more time there, and I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. I'm giving it 30 out of 40 stars, which is the highest rating we've got in the series so far. So if you have information or feedback, or you've been there, or you're thinking about it, let me know in the comments. And my next destination or my next review video is on Dumaguete, which is on almost every expat's list. And like Cebu City, I was in for a bit of a surprise. So make sure you stick around for my realistic, honest evaluation of Dumaguete, and I will see you in the next video. So long.